Temple of Hera at Olympia. The Temple of Hera, also known as Heraion, is an ancient Doric Greek temple at Olympia, Greece. The Temple of Hera was destroyed by an earthquake in the early 4th century AD, and never rebuilt. In modern times, the temple is the location where the torch of the Olympic flame is lit, by focusing the rays of the sun. The temple was dedicated to Hera, the wife of Zeus and one of the most important female deities in Greek religion. The Heraion at Olympia, located in the north of the Altis, the sacred precinct, is the oldest peripteral temple at that site, and one of the earliest Doric temples in Greece. There may have been an older cult place in the same location. The temple was erected circa 590 BC, probably as a dedication by the Triphilian polis of Scyllus. It is suggested that this dedication by a nearby city was originally in honor of the main patron deity at Olympia, Zeus. In that case, the temple would have rededicated to Hera at a later point, perhaps after 580 BC, when control of Olympia had passed from Triphylia to Elis, or in the 5th century BC, when the famous Temple of Zeus was built. The Temple of Hera was destroyed by an earthquake in the early 4th century AD. No repairs took place after that event. Pausanias relates that the temple was built approximately 8 years after Oxylos ascended to the throne of Elis, that is around 1096 BC, but in reality it is much later. According to some scholars, the first Heraion, built around 650 BC, was a small Doric temple with only a cellar and pronaos, to which the opisthodomos and toro were added later, around 600 BC. However, the theory that the entire temple was built around 600 BC prevails today. The temple was refurbished on many occasions, and the Romans transformed it into a kind of museum for the sanctuary's choicest treasures, such as the famous Hermes by Praxiteles. The temple measures 50.01 by 18.76 meters, 164.1 by 61.5 feet, at the stylobate level. Such elongated proportions are a common feature of early Doric architecture. It has a peripteros of 6 by 16 columns. These were originally wooden and were only gradually replaced with stone ones. As the replacements took place at widely differing periods between the Archaic and Roman periods and were carved under the influence of their respective contemporary styles, they differ considerably in proportions and detail. As late as the 2nd century AD, the travel writer Pausanias saw one wooden column in the opisthodomos. The walls had a bottom course of stone with a mud brick superstructure, another feature typical of early Greek architecture. Holes in the protrusions at the ends of the walls, the so-called antae, indicate that a wooden cladding protected them from the elements. The entablature above the columns must have been wooden, since no remains of it were found. The temple had a Laconian-style roof. Its pediments were decorated with disc acroteria of 2.5 m, 8.2 feet, diameter, each made in one single piece. One is on display at the Archaeological Museum of Olympia. Every second column was engaged in an internal cross wall, the 4 cross walls defining 5 niches. On a pedestal at the far end of the cellar stood the cult statues of Zeus and Hera, mentioned by Pausanias. Zeus was depicted standing next to Hera, who was seated on a throne. The archaic stone head of Hera recovered near the Heraion and displayed in the Olympia Archaeological Museum is attributed tentatively to this group. This is where the 16 noble Elean women who organized the Heraion Games deposited a new peplos woven for the goddess every 4 years. The temple is known to have held the disc of Aphetos on which the Olympic truce was inscribed, while in the opisthodomos were the chest of kypselos made of wood, gold and ivory, and decorated with mythological scenes, and the table of kolotes on which the Olympic victors' wild olive crowns were displayed. Only the temple's basement with its massive orthostates and lower part of the columns are visible in situ. Fragments of the terracotta entablature and a central acroterion are displayed in the museum. Pausanias reports 2 cult statues inside the cellar or naos of the temple, a seated Hera and a standing Zeus. An archaic stone head on display in Olympia Museum may belong to the statue of Hera. At the time of Pausanias, the building was also used to store numerous other objects, including many further statues of deities and votive offerings. Among the few of these objects to survive is the statue generally identified as the Hermes of Praxiteles, one of the most important preserved examples of Greek sculpture. The temple also held the table on which the olive wreaths for the victors were displayed during the Olympic Games. Today, the temple is the location the Olympic flame is lit.